Chapter 1. The Fatal Slapshot. 3 months earlier. Like so many wonderful and tragic things, it all started by mistake. Byron C. Oakes, the 14-year-old phenom, gripped his hockey stick and wove in and out of a laundry pile obstacle course, dodging, spinning, and sliding with ease, puck-handling a worn-out tennis ball and trying to avoid his dog Harold, who eyed it with more than a passing interest. Byron halted and took a slap shot. It went wild, lifting into the water heater, clunking off at a crazy angle, and ricocheting from a shelf before bouncing down the hall. Harold in hot pursuit. In fairness, Byron was a defensive phenom, the second best player on his travel team, but obviously not yet an excellent marksman, not with a ball, anyway. On a shelf, a pewter frame tottered for a moment, half over the edge, before spiraling to the linoleum floor with a glass-shattering crunch. Fudge Sunday, Byron swore through gritted teeth. He'd gotten in the habit of avoiding the more robust cuss words because his mom had excellent hearing. "What was that?" a stern female voice carried down the stairs. She knew how to say it with just the right amount of understated threat. "Nothing, Mom. Just practicing hockey," he lied. "I hit the water heater." Well, sort of a half-lie. His ever-cheerful shepherd returned, ears erect, and dropped the ball at his feet. Kicking it back down the hall and bending, Byron picked up the frame. It wasn't as bad as he'd feared. The glass had cracked into 3 long, jagged shards instead of shattering into a million bits. It'd be pretty easy to clean up. Taking a dirty shirt from the laundry, he placed the frame and shards in it, careful to avoid cutting his fingers. He'd bring it to his brother and see what their options were. Replace the glass? Hide it and feign ignorance? Fess up? Cole was older. He'd know what to do. Harold returned again. The ball dropped, leaving a ring of saliva. Ignoring it, Byron padded across the floor and up the stairs, silent in just his socks. Harold watched him go, whined, scooped up the ball between his teeth, and followed, his nails tapping happily and his tail wagging. Now upstairs, Byron turned into Cole's room and shut the door. His older brother sat on a beat-up swivel chair, hunched over the exposed guts of a desktop computer, soldering iron in hand and headphones over his ears. Despite the sunshine outside, he had the shade drawn and a bright lamp shone on his work. The room smelled like burning electrics, soccer cleats, and model glue. "Cole," Byron began, "help me out here." "1 minute," Cole responded, pulling the headphones off and letting them rest around his neck. Green Day's Welcome to Paradise carried thinly across the room. He picked up a paper schematic and cross-referenced a detail from it with his work. "I've almost brought this dead processor back to life." Harold whined and thumped outside the door. "Oh, all right," Byron snapped, opening it for the dog. Harold wagged both his tail and his butt, scooped up the ball, and padded into the room, repeatedly nudging Byron's hand with his snout. Again, Byron closed the door. An Apollo 13 poster of the Saturn V rocket mid-launch covered its inside, its corners curling around pushpins, and he turned back towards his brother. Colton Augustine Oakes was a genius. At least Byron believed so. Maybe some wouldn't be inclined to agree, seeing how he wore an old threadbare Zelda t-shirt and judging from the various posters on the wall. Stargate, Army of Darkness, Pinky and the Brain, Warcraft 2, and the cover art for Rush's 2112 album. But Cole knew almost everything about science, math, and especially computers. Not surprising, considering their mom had been a computer science major at MIT. Yet, Cole wasn't like one of those TV nerds. Sure, he scored in the highest staining on IQ tests, and he didn't understand mundane things like cooking or laundry very well, and he'd outgrown his pants again, so he was showing altogether too much sock. But he played an excellent midfield in soccer and swam competitively. Cole was an extrovert, too, good with people and easy in conversation, and he was a whiz at video games. He'd won everything they'd owned or borrowed for the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and Sega. Colton continued to ignore Byron, still tinkering with the laptop. Byron didn't like being ignored. "Hey," he whined, "I said help me out here." He walked over and dropped the dirty t-shirt on Cole's table. It made an intriguing, muffled scraping sound. Cole looked up from his soldering iron and removed his safety glasses. He had his dad's blue eyes under his tangled mop of dark hair. "What's that?" "I busted a picture," Byron shrugged unapologetically. "Take a look." Cole's adept brown fingers unfolded the shirt. "That one from downstairs?" "Yep." "You think you can replace the glass or maybe take it out and put it back up? They might not notice." Cole removed the shards, looking for the first time with seriousness at the photo. In splotchy black and white, it displayed 5 somber men in suits. They all posed around a table in a gaudy room. On the tabletop sat a machine. It was a film projector or something. A guy in the back, whom he recognized as his ancestor, Charles something, his dad was named after him, held a telegraph tapper thing. Was everyone back then so boring? Byron asked, studying the dignified expressions on the faces. No, pictures just took a long time to expose, like a minute, I think. They had to stand still that long. Hard to hold a smile because every twitch would leave the mouth blurry. Anyway, I think this is a lithograph, not a photograph. A what? Never mind. It looks like the frame might be damaged, Cole said, noting that one of the corners of the silver medal seemed to be coming apart. Let me take a look, take out this pic and see. He turned it over and removed the mildewed backing. Hola, he said, fidgeting with it. What's this? Between the cardboard and the image hid some folded papers. He handed the frame to Byron and began unfolding them. They were yellow and thin, like Bible pages, and brittle. Byron took out the photo lithograph, he corrected, then flipped it over. Signatures were scrawled across the back, one for each man on the front. Their cursive scripts presented difficulty, especially because Byron was dyslexic, but he thought he could make them out. Michael Faraday, Thomas Huxley, Charles Wheatstone, David Brewster, and John Tyndall. He cleared the area in front of Cole's desktop computer and moved a platoon of half-painted plastic miniatures, Legionnaires of Death, he thought they were called, skull-headed cyborg warriors from some tabletop strategy game, and swung the giant clamp-mounted magnifying glass aside. He bent his arm around the paints and brushes and tapped the mouse. Nothing happened. The screensaver continued to build a 3D labyrinth of multicolored sewer pipes. He picked up the mouse and shook it, sliding his thumb underneath to roll the trackball. The monitor sprang to life, the computer's internal fan whirred, and Byron pulled up Encarta, the Microsoft encyclopedia. 10 minutes passed. The tinny music from the headphones played through pulling teeth and basket case. Cole remained caught up with whatever he'd discovered. Byron was amazed by what he learned. The first guy, Faraday, was a world-famous scientist. He discovered electromagnetism and done all kinds of experiments with electricity and chemistry. Huxley was a biologist involved with Charles Darwin and the theory of evolution. He seemed like a big deal. The third person, Wheatstone, had been a major inventor. He'd come up with something called the electric telegraph, 3D glasses, some kind of science clock, and a bridge. He'd also helped lay the transatlantic cable. By the last two names, Byron's head hurt, and he'd lost patience with reading, but the skim of the entries showed that one did some work with optics, and the other with infrared radiation. A bunch of brainiacs, clearly. Which one is Dad's, great-grandfather, he calculated. I think it's double-great-grandfather, Cole replied absently. Charles something. Wheatstone? Yeah, I think. He invented the electric telegraph and 3D goggles. Really? Cole looked up. Yeah, pretty cool. Well, wait until you get a look at this. He waved the paper. It wasn't all he invented. Thanks.